الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. With regards to the Khilal, also for those who wants to get to know more of the applicable volume and weight for the Khilal and what is mentioned here with the Ratl, or it's 100 Ratl and 7 from the Dimashqi or the Iraqi or so. So as we said, it's around 300 liters for both. And in kilograms, it depends on how the definition is between 157 to 162 kilograms of water. And it just that again, it's approximate, and it's okay. This is the ulama were upon. It's not about very precise, but again, this is what they mentioned with regards to the qilal. And of course, if a person is not sure, then you leave what is in doubt to do what you're upon certainty with, inshallah. Then after that, he says fasl. Fasl means chapter. And al-fasl is when you separate two things from one another because it's a different subject, but still in the subject of purification. He says, كل إناء طاهر يباح اتخاذه واستعماله. Now he's going to talk about the aniya. Aniya is the plural, ina is one. Al-aniya is the utensils or the containers where you use it for the water. So the water, either you're going to get it from the rain, you make wudu with it, or you use it in a container. So that's why the ulama would mention the containers or the things that is put in it, cups or whatever, not just for wudu, but also what is permissible and what's not permissible, as it's mentioned in the deen of Islam, Quran and Sunnah. So he says here, كل إناء طاهر, every ina. Ina is envelope. Something is a container that can sustain water in it. Tahir, so it has to be pure itself, not made from pigs, for example, or something that is impure. Yubah. Yubah اتخاذه واستعماله. Then it's permissible, yubah. اتخاذه, to have it, to own it. واستعماله, and to use it. There are two things here. There is issue of al-ittikhad. Can you own something versus can you own it and use it? People might have plates of silver, but they don't use it, but they just have it, as a memory or to save it or whatever there is. So this is, here he's saying, كل إناء طاهر يباح اتخاذه واستعماله. It's permissible for it to be used and to have it اتخاذه, and to have it and to use it. We're talking here about the Taharah or the purification. So if the container is not stolen, right? And because if it's stolen, then it's not permissible. And it's you can use it and you can have it. But then it says here أن يكون that كل إناء طاهر, if it has gold or silver, as it will be mentioned, إلا أن يكون ذهبا أو فضة أو مضببا بأحدهما, except that it's gold or silver or مضببا بأحدهما. المضبب is the one that is plated with either the gold or the silver. So again al-ittikhad is to own it, and to use it is very clear in the Taharah, in eating and drinking. So every container, tahir, pure, يباح اتخاذه, that it's permissible for you to own it, واستعماله, and you can use it, unless it's gold. So you cannot use it and you cannot own it as far as a plate or utensils and so on. أو فضة, right? It's also, according to what's mentioned here, you cannot own it and you cannot use it. Because the hadith of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, لا تشربوا في أنية الذهب والفضة ولا تأكلوا في صحافهما. Do not drink in the gold or the silver, and do not eat in its plates. فإنها لهم في الدنيا ولكم في الآخرة. It's for them in this dunya, and it's for you in the hereafter. Right? أو مضببا بأحدهما, or if it's plated. But then he would say mudabbab, that means it has a dabba, that means a portion of it is from gold, portion of it of silver, not pure gold or silver. They used to fix a crack in a container with gold or silver to make it fixable or usable again. So if it's not from gold and silver, it has some gold and silver for a purpose, for a reason, then it does not make it forbidden here. لكن تباح ضبة يسيرة من فضة لحاجة. He says here only if the ضبة or this portion is from silver and it's يسيرة, it's something small, لحاجة, for a reason, not for beautifying the container, but for a reason, because it fixes it. As the Prophet ﷺ, he had this. He had in his container, it was fixed with a piece of silver so that it's back again to be used. So this is an exception here. So these having a container of gold, a container of silver, and something that has some gold or some silver. If it's gold or silver, it is not basically permissible to use it or to have it, right? So and that's as a rule. حرم استعماله حرم اتخاذه. If something that is not permissible to use, then it's not permissible to own, right? And this is when it comes to this. But this is, again, we're talking about the containers. But what's permissible for women is the gold to wear, and it's permissible for men to wear a silver ring. So we're talking about the utensils here or the containers. لكن تباح ضبة يسيرة من فضة. Only if it's silver and it's small portion for a reason, then it's permissible in that case. And he says, وما لم تعلم نجاسته من آنية كفار وثيابهم طاهر. Now here, وما لم تعلم, what's not known, تعلم, نجاسته, it's najasa, من آنية كفار, from the aniya, from the cups or plates. Aniya, again, is anything that can have something in it, water or food. So something that is not known to be impure from the aniya, from the utensils of al-kuffar, and their clothes, the clothes of the kuffar, tahir, it's pure. So it's the original ruling of it, it's pure. Not the original ruling, it's impure. So if a disbeliever gives someone a plate, if you go to a restaurant and you have given a plate, you don't know anything about it, even if it's used for something impure before, right? It's clean, right? You can eat from it, you can drink from it, right? It's tahir. And the same thing for their clothing, as long as it's not known to be najis. If it's known to be najis, then it's a different situation. And that's why the sometimes excessiveness in making sure that this is cleaned in such a way, and this is, of course, it has to be clean, but as long as ما لم تعلم نجاسته, as long as it's not known to be najis. من أنية كفار, from the aniyah, from the containers of the kuffar, وثيابهم, and their clothing is tahir, is pure. ولا يطهر جلد ميتة بدباغ. Again, these masail that have some differences of opinions, of course. So ولا يطهر is not pure, it's not purified. جلد ميتة, the skin of a dead animal without being slaughtered. Al-mayta, when it's mayit, is dead. Mayta is an animal, usually refers to the animal that is dead, and that means it's not been slaughtered in the proper way, shot to death or whatever. So the skin of it, the mayta, of course, it's not permissible to eat, but can you benefit from the skin of it? He says, ولا يطهر جلد ميتة بدباغ. الدباغ is when it's tanned, when it's chemically changed or whatever. This is a dibagh. According here to the famous opinion of the madhab, that it does not become pure, even if it's tanned or it's tanned. That means it's not in its original form. Still, it's not pure. But this is a matter that, again, has difference of opinions, because according to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, but here the mas'ala وَلَا يَطْهُرُ جِلْدُ مَيْتَةٍ بِدِبَاغٍ. And some said it's pure because of the Prophet ﷺ called them to do that, to purify it. So وَلَا يَطْهُرُ جِلْدُ مَيْتَةٍ بِدِبَاغٍ. So pay attention to this mas'ala. وَكُلُّ أَجْزَائِهَا نَجِسَةٍ. وَكُلُّ أَجْزَائِهَا نَجِسَةٍ. That means every kullu ajza'iha, every part of it, of this mayta that died without being slaughtered, najisa, is impure. إلا شعرا ونحوه, except the hair, which the hair mean refers to the wool and the whatever, not the skin, and it's from the animal that is not been slaughtered. وَنَحْوَهُ, and the like of it, which is basically like he said the hair here, which is the wool and the like of this. So this is not impure even after its death. And he says وَالْمُنْفَصِلُ مِنْ حَيٍّ كَمَيْتَتِهِ. وَالْمُنْفَصِلُ مِنْ حَيٍّ. Another مسألة. المنفصل انفصل شيء, like فصل المنفصل, that something separated. المنفصل, the one that is separated, من حي, from someone that was alive. Like from an animal, for example, you separate a leg or an arm, something that is cut off from the animal. كَمَيْتَتِهِ, that means has the same ruling of its mayta. So, for example, if you cut from a goat or a sheep something, then it takes the ruling of the mayta that is not slaughtered from the goat or the sheep. So, for example, if you cut from something that is permissible to eat the mayta of it, like fish, for example, if you cut a piece of a live fish, it's okay, you can eat it, no problem. You don't have to slaughter the fish. But something you're supposed to slaughter it, like say, for example, someone he likes the shoulder of the goat. He just, when the goat is walking around, he just cut the shoulder and go and kick and cook it and eat it, for example. It has the same ruling as the mayta, right? Because he did not slaughter it in the proper way. Ad-dibagh is when it's tanned. Am I saying it right? When the skin is chemically changed to be used as like processed. No. And again, these issues, like for example, the skin of an animal that is not slaughtered. Of course, the animals that is not permissible for us to eat, even if it's slaughtered, the skin of it is not permissible. Pigs and the like of them. But if it's an animal that is permissible to eat if it's slaughtered, but now it was not slaughtered, it was just killed like this, there is a difference of opinions with regards to that issue. Just to make sure that if someone has something like this, we're studying here the book, but because of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, أَلَا أَخَذُوا إِهَابَهَا فَدَبَغُوا فَانْتَفَعُوا بِهِ. When there was a goat that was dead, a sheep that was dead, and the Prophet ﷺ said to the people, why didn't they take its skin? فَدَبَغُوا. So they would make the dabagh of it when they put salt and things like this, and they would benefit from it. So, and that's the other opinion. And the other ones, they said it's not purified because it's died in a state of being mayta without being slaughtered. This is with regards to the aniyah. Then he says fasl. We're talking about the things that are here. The mayta that is basically is to be eaten, right? And it's this is if it's pure in itself, like when it comes to these animals, yes, it's the nails and things like this. It's munfasil, it's separated from it. It's not something that would take even if it's not an animal to be eaten. Come from the hairs. The hair of anything from the pig is not permissible. Anything, the pig inside out, is something that is completely najis. No difference between one part or the other. The other animals is okay. But we'll go to the next one, which is, he says, fasl. Wal-istinja. He's going to talk about al-istinja, or to clean oneself after going to the bathroom. And al-istinja is basically to cut off the impurity that a person excretes. And it's come from najawtu ash-shajara, that means when you cut the tree. This is basically what al-istinja comes from that. So it's to clean oneself after going to the bathroom. So al-istinja, he says, wajibun min kulli kharijin. It's wajib. So if someone goes to relieve himself, goes to the bathroom, urinate to defecate, then to make istinja, that means to clean the mahil or the place of the najasa, is wajib, is mandatory. Min kulli kharijin, from to do that from everything that comes out. of course, comes out from where? From as-sabilain, the two paths, the front and the back. Anything that comes out, even if it's pure, it doesn't matter. It's mandatory to clean that spot. Illa, except, that means you don't have to make istinja, you don't have to clean the private parts. If what comes out is a-rih is the wind, so that you don't have to make istinja for the rih. Wat-tahir, as he says here, at-tahir is refers to anything that is pure, like the seminal fluid or things like that. You don't have to clean, but it breaks the wudu. You don't have to clean after it comes out, but it breaks the wudu, or in that case, in the mani, it breaks the state of the major state of tahara. That means the person has to take a shower. But if something tahir comes out, like for example, someone put medicine and it came out the way it entered, right? That breaks the wudu. The fact that it came out, it breaks the wudu. But does he have to wash? Again, the athar, or the what left, as if a person urinated, for example, defecated? No. This is what is meant here. وغير الملوث. And also the exception is the غير الملوث, the one that is not contaminated. Something mulawwath, that means it's contaminated with najasa. But the word is nowadays is used for anything that is like they use the same word for when the air is pollution, like pollution in general, right? So, but pollution, it's different than najasa. Najasa is a specific things that makes a matter impure. So غير الملوث, basically the one that is not contaminated with najis. If it's not najasa, that means you don't have, it's not obligatory thing to make istinja. That means to remove it. Okay, so al-istinja becomes even, as we heard, obligatory for anything that comes out from as-sabilain. Sabilain, we know what as-sabil and as-sabil, the two paths, the path of urine and the path of feces. To make istinja is wajib, except al-rih, the wind, or al-tahir, something pure, or something that is not impure. He says, وَسُنَّةً, that means it's mustahab, that means it's recommended. Sunnah here, not with a ta' marbuta at the end, it's with a noon. So it's in the passive tense. وَسُنَّة, but then since it's a noon with a shadda, so it takes two counts. So it says, وَسُنَّ عِنْدَ دُخُولِ خَلَاءٍ, it's been made as a sunnah, as a recommended thing. عِنْدَ refers to when something very close. So when dukhul khala, when a person enters, dukhul is the noun, entering, khala. And al-khala is the place where a person relieve himself, goes to the bathroom basically, which is the place that is prepared for that. And al-khala comes from the place that is empty. Khala, something that is empty, but it becomes the place, it's called for the place of the people would relieve themselves in. عند دخول خلاء, the place that is assigned for this, not in the desert, right? But in the desert or in openness, if a person has to do that, then he would say what is going to come when he's sitting, while he's sitting, if it's in the openness, right? Or before he is about to relieve himself. But if there's a place designated for like the bathroom, عند, while entering. عند دخول خلاء قول, the statement, or to say Bismillah, the name of Allah, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal-khaba'ith. Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from al-khubuth wal-khaba'ith. And the al-khubuth wal-khaba'ith is the impurities, and al-khaba'ith, al-khubuth, or whether it's with a sukoon, al-khubth wal-khaba'ith. Al-khubth in general is the evil, and al-khaba'ith refers to the shayateen. So as if a person is seeking refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from all the evil and all of the shayateen, males and females, as the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he said in another hadith that this is the satr, or what conceals the person, his awrah from the shayateen, is to say this. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal-khaba'ith. He says وَبَعْدَ خُرُوجٍ مِنْهُ. That means it's also وَسُنَّةٍ. Again, I'm saying sunnah, it's not sunnah. وَسُنَّةٍ, it's with the noon, with the shadda. That means in the passive tense. And it's from the sunnah is after a person comes out from the khala, from the bathroom, to say غفرانك. To say غفرانك, which means, oh Allah, forgive me. Forgiveness from you I seek. As the Prophet ﷺ used to say that. And also, Alhamdulillah, الذي أذهب عني الأذى وعافاني. Alhamdulillah, that Allah, the one that أذهب عني, moved away from me, الأذى, the harm, وعافاني, and he gave me strength, which is basically the what a person goes through when he relieve himself and purify himself. Even though some that said it's weak, and so but it's always mentioned in the subject. He says وَتَغْطِيَةُ رَأْسٍ وَسُنَّةٍ. Also from, it's recommended تَغْطِيَةُ رَأْس and وَانْتِعَالٍ. تَغْطِيَةُ رَأْس is for the person to cover his head, and basically that's what it says, تَغْطِيَةُ رَأْس. So is it from the sunnah to cover the head or not to cover the head? There is a weak hadith with regards to this. So again, but it's mentioned here as if a person wants to cover his head, mashallah, it's up to him. The ulama mentioned it in the books, and some had authenticated some of the nations. Most of it's weak narrations anyway. So وتغطية رأس وانتعال. وانتعال is to wear na'al, or to wear the shoes or the slippers when a person would enter the bathroom, as a way to, some of the things where the ulama would mention the books of fiqh to as recommended, but it's a way for something else, since there's general rulings in the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ that encourage the person to be clean, for example, or to be away from waswas. So they would mention things even though there's no specific dalil to it, but referring to the general adilla of things. But can a person enter barefooted? Sure, no problem. وانتعال. وتقديم رجله اليسرى دخولا. And to taqdeem, to put قدم, that means when you put forward first, رجله اليسرى, his left legs, دخولا, while entering. And this is, there is no, again, clear evidence of that, but it's something that since anything that is impure, they would use the left. So you're entering an impure place or so, then it's to do that. He says, وَاعْتِمَادُهُ عَلَيْهَا جَالِسًا. Also, وَسُنَّةً, that it's recommended to lean on the left while sitting. جَالِسًا وَاعْتِمَادُهُ. Al-i'timad is to rely upon. So to lean, to sit on the left more. And this is something that also has some of the narrations from the Prophet ﷺ, even though as far as the direct hadith is also weak. But it's something that is mentioned, as they say, the illah or the reason for it, that it makes it easy for the kharaj, it makes it easy for the what's coming out to come out at ease. So وَاعْتِمَادُ عَلَيْهَا جَالِسًا. That's what he said, they always say that. وَالْيُمْنَى خُرُوجًا وَسُنَّةً أيضا. All of this from what's recommended when a person goes to the bathroom, that it's recommended, al-yumna is the right, khurujan, going out. And you see here, it's jumal ismiya, it's not verbs here. Like sunnah is the verb, right? So it's recommended that a person would put taqdeem, al-yumna, the right foot, khurujan, coming out, because it's a good place or a pure place, or you're going to a pure place. Aksu masjidin. Aks is the opposite to a masjid, because the masjid, you go in with your right foot and you go out with the left foot, right? And even some said a house and like this, but there's no evidence. It's just a general etiquette that you learn, even when the Prophet ﷺ used to like at tayammum, that he would use the right hand and the right foot in all that is pure and good, then he would use the left for what's impure. Aksu masjidin wa na'lin wa nahwihima. Wa na'l is when you put your shoes, you put the right first and then the left, and then when you take off the left first and then the right. Wa nahwihima, and the like of that, whether it's like a house or whatever. He says, wa bu'dun fi fada. وسنة أيضا it's recommended. وبعد. بعد is far away. في فضاء in openness. So if a person is going to relieve himself in openness, then it's from the sunnah to go far away. And this is clearly what the Prophet ﷺ used to do when they're traveling or so. He would go where nobody can see him. And that's the issue of people doing that in front of one another. This is evil and this is haram. وَطَلَبُ مَكَانٍ رَخْوٍ لِبَوْلٍ. Also from what is recommended, it's all it's come from وَسُنَّة. So it's also recommended طَلَبُ, that you seek makan, a place, رَخْو. الرخو is the wet, not the harsh, not the الرخو is the opposite of a sulb. A sulb when something is hard. So, and to seek something soft for the urine. Why? So that it doesn't rebound back. That doesn't splashes back. So this is also recommended so that the person does not get into the waswas, that something impurity came on me or not. And as a rule with the najasa, if you're not certain, then there's no rulings. And you don't act based on doubts. But to avoid the doubt is that you seek a place that is soft, not a place that is hard. And there is some narrations would refer to this. وطلب مكان رخو لبول ومسح الذكر باليد اليسرى إذا انقطع البول. And also from what's recommended to wipe مسح الذكر. The الذكر is the private part, and it mainly refers to the male organ or the place of urine in general. باليد اليسرى, with the left hand. باليد اليسرى إذا انقطع البول. If the urine انقطع, that means it's stopped, it's detached, it's not still continuously coming out. من أصله إلى رأسه ثلاثا. من أصله, from the root of it till the head of it 3 times. To wash it 3 times like this with one's hand, with the left hand. This particular way from the root to the top is just to make sure that there is nothing on the organ itself that fell on the organ or so to make sure that it's clean. And he says وَنَتْرُهُ ثَلَاثًا, and also to recommend it that to a natr is when someone would move it 3 times or shake it 3 times, so that anything that is waiting to go out, then it goes out, but without squeezing. This is not from the sunnah. This is something that is harmful. This is something that the ulama forbade for a person to do something like this. But just to do something without excessiveness, unless a person is sick. The sickness has a different rulings to it. If a person has salas bawl, that means the urine comes out without any control of the person. So all of that is when it comes to what is recommended in these types of things when a person goes to the bathroom. Then he talks about what's kuriha or what's makruh. And again, kuriha, that means a person gets rewards if he stays away from it, and he gets no sins if he does it. وكره دخول خلاء بما فيه ذكر الله تعالى. وكره, it's disliked, makruh, to enter khala, any place that is prepared for urination or defecation, بما فيه ذكر الله تعالى, that you would have in it the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, when he would enter, he would remove his khatam and so on. وكلام, also وكلام فيه بلا حاجة, and it's also makruh to speak in the bathroom. وكلام فيه بلا حاجة, without a need to do so. If there's a need, saving someone's harm is going to happen, something like this, بلا حاجة, without a need. ورفع ثوب قبل دنو من الأرض. Also what's disliked is رفع ثوب, to lift رفع ثوب, the garment or so, قبل دنو من الأرض, before دنو. Dunu is to approach, and dunya is from the near. So قبل دنو, before coming close to the earth, to the ground. If you wear a qamis, right? So you don't expose one's awra, even if a person is alone, before he goes down. Of course, there's the issue of a ta'arri. If a person, is it permissible to, a person takes his clothes off like this for that reason, it's something that is disliked. Unless there's a reason, taking a shower or so, whatever. But and that's also from the adab, that while he's going down, then he would lift, so that, especially if he's the outside also. وَرَفْعُ ثَوْبٍ قَبْلَ دُنُوٍ مِنَ الْأَرْضِ, before approaching the earth. وَبَوْلٌ فِي شَقٍ وَنَحْوٍ, and also it's disliked to urinate in shaq. And a shaq is the hole in the ground, and that is where the madhinnat wujud, that means there might be animals there, bugs, jinn. So a person might hurt himself by doing that, and they would revenge from him. And as mentioned in the hadith, that this is masakin or jinn, or the jinn, they live there. So if a person does that, and he should not blame anyone but his own self if something happens to him. So not to do that. وَبَوْلٌ فِي شَقٍ وَنَحْوِهِ, and the like of it, holes in the ground, things like this. وَمَسُّ فَرْجٍ بِيَمِينٍ بِلَا حَاجَةٍ, and also it's makruh to touch mas farj, and farj is the private part, and it's used for the front and the back. This is all called farj. Biyamin, with the right hand, bila haja, without a need, as a person is sick or something. وَمَسُّ فَرْجٍ بِيَمِينٍ بِلَا حَاجَةٍ, without a need. And that's always the case. If something is makruh, if there's a need, it doesn't become makruh anymore. وَاسْتِقْبَالُ النَّيْرَيْنِ, and to face النَّيْرَيْنِ. النَّيْرَيْنِ from the nur, or from the light, the two nurs, which is the moon and the sun. Right? So to face them. But there is no, authentic, nothing. There's no dalil of this whatsoever. But it's mentioned. There's no evidence of that. I mean, if someone or some had claimed without, it's just to mention that, since people might hear this somewhere, where people believe that this is the names of Allah written in them, or angels, this or that. It's all unseen. How can a person make a statement like this without evidences? So, but maybe for something else, maybe a person exposed, if he turns away from being exposed from light or something, that's a different situation. But to believe there is some non-seen reason not to face them, there's no evidence of that whatsoever. And then he says وَحَرُمَ. Now after he mentioned what's recommended, and then what's makruh, and then وَحَرُمَ, which means, and what's haram, it's forbidden. استقبال قبلة, to face the qibla. واستدبارها, and to give your back to the qibla. استقبال is to قبالة الشيء, that means in front of the person. استدبار, الدبر is the back. So استدبار, to give your back to the qibla. في غير بنيان. في غير بنيان. Bunyan is the building. Bina is building. So in other than buildings, he says here وحرمة. Because there's a hadith, إذا أتيتم الغائط or so, فلا تستقبلوا القبلة ولا تستدبروها. If you do the defecate, do not face the qibla, do not give your back to the qibla, ولكن شرقوا وغربوا. So some took that as makruh or haram. So again, is to not to intentionally face the qibla if you're in the openness. That means you have a choice to go east or west or so, then intentionally you should not face the qibla or give your back to the qibla. And the hadith شرقوا وغربوا, go to the east or the west from Al-Madinah. Because the Medina, if you go south, that's Mecca. So if you go east and west, that means you're away from this. But if that means في غير بنيان, that means if it's in a bunyan, if it's in a building already facing the qibla or giving back to the qibla, it's not haram. He says وَلُبْثٌ فَوْقَ الْحَاجَةِ. لُبْث وَلَبِثُوا فِي كَهْفِهِمْ, the people of the Kahf. لَبِثُوا, that means they stayed in. So walubth is to stay فوق الحاجة, more than the need. So a person goes to the bathroom and he is so comfortable that he stays for a long time. This is, he says here, وحرمة. And according to the madhab and others, if something that is harmful, then it goes into the category of haram, or it's makruh or so. So this is, as he says here, because it's whether it's harmful or because of it's exposing the awrah without a need, and plus the harm. وَلُبْثٌ فَوْقَ الْحَاجَةِ. وبول في طريق مسلوك ونحوه. وبول, it's also حرم, it's not permissible to urinate في طريق مسلوك, in a path. طريق مسلوك, مسلوك, that means it's walked on, it's used, it's not deserted. مسلوك, that means people they walk on it or they use it. ونحوه, and the like of that. He says وتحت شجرة مثمرة ثمرا مقصودا. ونحوه, whether it's the shade or anything that people use. People sit under the shade path that they take. Of course, this is something that is not permissible to urinate in these places, like you find people on the sidewalk or something like this. وتحت شجرة مثمرة, and under مثمرة means fruitful, شجرة, or a tree that is fruitful. ثمرا مقصودا, ثمرا مقصودا, that people would, مقصود, that means people, they seek it, they go to it, and مقصود is the objective. So people would go to a tree to get fruits from it. So under that tree, which is basically also the dhill or the shade, it is not permissible to urinate there. And then he says وَسُنَّةً, and then it's also goes back to what is recommended. استجمار ثم استنجاء بماء. Istijmar is to use the jimar, which is the hajar, to use stones. ثم, then istinja bima, then you make istinja to clean with water. So if you have both, you can do one or the other. You can do with the stones only, and what comes into the categories of stones, the tissues or so. So you can either use the stone or the tissue alone, or you can use water alone. And if you use both, then you start with the tissue first, or istijmar, then the water. And of course, it's very obvious, because if you do the water first and then the tissue, if it's not for drying, it's talking about istinja. Then if you do that, the tissue later, it would spread the najasa more. But if it's for drying off, that's a different situation. You're not making istinja, you're just drying yourself. So wasunna istijmar. So if you're doing both, you do what is the tissue or the stones first, and then the istinja to use the water. And the sunnah here is that you have both, because it's more in cleaning. ويجوز, it's permissible. الاقتصار على أحدهما. الاقتصار, that means you only على أحدهما, to do only one, to do one or the other. الاقتصار from al-qasar is even qasr, that means you shorten something. That means الاقتصار is that you stay only for one, you don't do both. ويجوز الاقتصار على أحدهما, on only one. لكن الماء أفضل حينئذ, and if you have to choose one or the other, لكن, except that الماء, the water, is أفضل, is better in this case, حينئذ, that in this situation. So the best is both tissues or stone and water, and you can do one or the other, but in that case, if you have a choice, then water is best. But those who would not use only tissues, this is permissible, this is fine to only use tissues or only stones. But if you have both, this is what is best. He says, وَلَا يَصِحُّ اسْتِجْمَارٌ إِلَّا. Istijmar, using the stone, it is not يصح, is not valid, إِلَّا, except. بِطَاهِر, so whatever you use for istijmar, using the stone or the tissue, it has to be طاهر, it has to be pure. Mubah, permissible, that means not stolen, for example. But what if a person uses it when it's stolen, and you remove the najasa is removed, but it's haram for him. Yabis, al-yabis is the dry. It has to be something dry, not something that is wet. Munkin, that means it would clean, something that would clean. And otherwise, if it's not, then it's going to increase the najasa. So all of that is, it has to be fulfilling these conditions. And the last thing here he mentions, 4 minutes, وحرم, and it's forbidden, بروث. الروث is basically the droppings of the animals. بروث, it's forbidden. Even if it's the rawth is tahir, even if it's pure. Like the rawth of the sheep and goats is pure. Pure meaning that if it comes on the body, the person doesn't have to clean it. If he wants to clean it, that's okay. But it's not something that would break the salah. but it's not permissible to use it for cleaning oneself. وعظم, and bones, even if it's something that is slaughtered properly, because it refers to the jinn, as the Prophet ﷺ said, it's their food. وعظم, وطعام, and food, of course, if someone would clean himself with food. وذي حرمة, ذي حرمة, ذي or ذو refers to the owner of, or something belongs to. So ذي حرمة, something that has حرمة, something that has something respected. And حرمة, not necessarily haram, but something that is respected, like, for example, books or paper that is, has stuff written on it and things like this. And also ومتصل بحيوان, and ومتصل بحيوان, and something that is attached to an animal. I mean, it's that mean, for example, the tail of the animal. If a person has his animal with him, if you something like this, ومتصل بحيوان, they don't leave anything. He says وشرط له, and it's شرط له, that means it's a condition for what a person when he cleans himself, it's a condition here, but here for the stone only. وشرط له, that means what's conditioned for the stones only, or the tissue only. If a person uses the tissue only, it's a condition that here عدم تعدي خارج موضع العادة. عدم تعدي, not عدم is negating something. تعدي is transgressing, going beyond. خارجي, عدم تعدي خارج. الخارج is what comes out, the impurity. So it does not go beyond موضع العادة. It does not go beyond the place where it's normally in. So that means if the impurity goes beyond what it's supposed to be in, right, on something else, not, we want to be explicit. That's why the عدم تعدي خارج موضع العادة, right? صفحة المقعدة, for example, when it goes beyond what it's supposed to be, right? If it makes it goes to other places of the body, then you should not use it. Also وثلاث مسحات منقية فأكثر. That means it's also as a condition for it that it's 3 wiping مسحات منقية, that would clean فأكثر, or more, right? So that means if it's according to this, if it's less than 3, it is not sufficient, right? But the other thing, if it's 1 and it's clean, comes out clean, that's sufficient, it's clean. But again, here according to this, it says 3 is what is minimum for it to be for a person to use. Again, this is with regards to al-hajar, or the tissue. So if a person uses a tissue only without water, and if wiping 1 time and it comes out without any impurity, that's fine. But according here to what we mentioned, 3 to do 3, and maybe the first one was not clean. And after 3, if it's clean, then that's sufficient. If it's not clean, then you make it 5, and so on. So these 2 conditions specifically for the stone and what the like of the stone, which is in that case is the tissue. Oh, we 1 minute extended. So we'll stop here, inshallah ta'ala. We'll do the questions later because, again, we don't want to get closer to the time of the salah. So after Salatul Isha, inshallah, if you have any questions. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam.